Welcome to month 6 of Cheshire Quilters Guild 2019 Block of the Month Cat Den Mountain Quilts BOM. This month we're going to make the block Summer Winds. And we're going to start by making 4 flying geese using the fast flying geese method or the no waste method, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to draw lines in the back of our fabric A squares. And then we're going to take 2 of those squares and lay them on opposite corners of our fabric G square. So put one on this corner, one on that corner, and the lines, we're going to make it so the lines line up. We're going to stitch a 1/4 inch on either side of those 2 lines. Meet you back here when I have that done. Okay, now that I've sewn on both sides of the line, I can cut these apart. And now I'm going to take them over and I'm going to press these away the white, toward the white. Meet you back here for the next step. Okay, now that those are pressed, we're going to take our other remaining squares we've got the lines drawn on, put them in the corners, and stitch on either side. Meet you back here in just a minute. Okay, now that we've got those sewn, we just take our ruler and cut apart along the drawn line. Oops. And again, we're going to press away, and look, there's a flying geese unit. We're not finished with them, however. After we press them, there's one last thing we need to do. Okay, I'll be back when I have all 4 of them pressed. Okay, so I have my geese pressed, and now I'm going to show you how I square them up to size. We want them to be 2.5 by 4.5. So we want the 2.5 inch and the 4.5 inch marks to be on the seam down here, and we want the 2 1/4 to be right, so halfway, to be right at that point, and we want the point 1/4 inch from the side. So if I line up my ruler like that, looks good. I can trim 2 sides, and when I turn it around and I put the sides on the 2.5 and the 4.5, and we can see this 45 goes right through that point. We did an excellent job on that one. So one more time. Well, I could do it this way also. I want this point 1/4 inch down. So I needed at the 2 1/4 mark. My 45, actually, that works pretty nice. Not quite over there. Okay, I'm going to square up the other 2, and then I'll show you what the next step is. Okay, now we're going to assemble the center of our block, and we're going to do that by sewing geese on either side of the large square, and we're going to sew small squares on the either side of the other 2 geese. So let's do that. And we're going to press the seams away from the geese, so toward the squares in each case. Okay, so I've got these made, so now I'm just going to piece these together. Since we press the seams to the squares, we'll be able to nest the seams on both sides as we sew this together. So I'm going to do that and press, and then we'll come back to see what the next step is. Okay, so there's our center made. So now the next thing to do is to make some half square triangles. I'm going to do that by using these 2 rectangles. And what I'm going to do is on the back of the fabric A rectangle, I'm going to draw a horizontal line 2 vertical lines. I think I'll do it from this side. And then I'm going to draw diagonal lines starting in this upper left corner. I'm going to go diagonally down, and you'll see I'll go through that intersection down to this point. And then I can draw, I don't know if it's dark enough to see. Let me just draw that one in a little bit darker. It's going to be in the seam allowance. All of these are going to be in seam allowance, so it's okay. And then I'm going to draw up this way. And then in this one, each time I'm doing point to point on the corners, and then finally I'm going to draw from that point to this corner over here. Now, you might say, well, that's kind of crazy. Well, the reason I drew them in that order is because that's the way I'm going to stitch. I'm going to stitch on either side of all the diagonal lines. So I'm going to stitch down 1/4 of an inch along here. Then I'm going to come along this side, this side, this side. Then I'm going to turn the piece around. I'm going to go back on the other side, and I'm going to stitch the 1/4 inch on the other side of each one of the lines. Now each time I'm going to go all the way off the edge, so I'm going to have some overlapping stitches here, which are going to be in the seam allowance, but that's okay. When I come back, after I've got it all stitched, I'll show you what we'll do next, and it'll all become clear. What we're going to do is we're going to be making 12 half square triangles at the same time using just these 2 rectangles with all these lines drawn. Okay, so I've sewn on both sides of the diagonal lines, and now I'm just going to take my ruler and I'm going to cut on every line that I drew. So I've got these 2 diagonals that go this way. I'm trying very hard not to shift anything. I've got 2 verticals here. There's one. And the other. I've got a horizontal going this way. And there's 2 verticals in this direction. So I'm cutting on every single one of those drawn lines. And when I'm finished cutting, we have 12 half square triangles. So now I'm going to press all these to the darker fabric and bring them back here so that we can trim them to size. We've made them slightly oversized. So I'll see you back here in just a minute after I get these all pressed. What a mess. Alright, so here's my pile of half square triangles. Now I'm going to take the 45 on my ruler and lay it on the seam of each one of these and trim them down to 2.5 inches, which is the size that we need. So you can see I got a little bit extra on every side, but that gives us room to get the dog ears off. And so I need to trim up all 12 of these. I don't think you want to watch me do that. So I'll meet you back here when I've got them all ready to go. Okay, now that we've got our half square triangles done, we can complete the other components of our block. So we're going to make 2 units that look like this. And we're going to make 2 units that look like this. And that will use up all of our remaining pieces that we have cut. Make sure you watch out for the orientation of your triangles, that you've got that straight edge is toward the inside on all of them, and they're all pointing in the same direction. And when we press, we're going to press toward the inside on the longer row and toward the outside on the shorter row. Alright, I'll see you back here in just a couple minutes. Okay, so I have the short ones made, and I pressed the seams toward the half square triangles because we've pressed these. If we follow the pressing instructions, we press these two seams toward the inside. So now I can lay these on the sides, and the seams are going to nest nicely. So let me finish up with the other pieces that have the extra triangles on it, and we can see what the whole block is going to look like. Okay, so there's all our pieces, and because we've pressed these seams out and these seams are pressed in, when we sew on these side pieces, we're going to press those seams out, and that will so these seams will nest nicely. So let me sew these two pieces on, and we'll see what we have. Okay, so this is all pieced and pressed. So we just sew these two pieces on, and we'll have our complete Summer Winds block. I'll meet you back here when I have it finished. And there you have Block 6, Summer Winds of Cheshire Quilters Guild 2019 Block of the Month, Cat Den Mountains BOM. See you next month for Block 7, Key Lime Pie.